Yinspired is dedicated to all the grandmothers and aunties whose voices weren't heard or listened to, and created for the daughters. Aloha and welcome back to Yinspired, a podcast celebrating different perspectives in Chinese medicine and integrative medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Haunani Chong Drake, a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, a licensed acupuncturist, a cultural practitioner and steward, mama, dog mama, and military spouse. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Yinspired. We are still here. I am so excited to share with you our first guest who I didn't know until this podcast started. And so today with us is Dr. Krystal Couture. I'm so happy you are here. And thank you so much for being willing to share your wisdom and knowledge with us today. How are you?
Hi, Haunani. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here and to really get into this yin space with you today.
I will make sure to share your full bio in our show notes, but I was wondering if you could just please introduce yourself to our listeners. Who are you? What are you currently doing? What interests you these days?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Dr. Krystal Couture. I am a physical therapist and an acupuncturist. I specialize in pelvic health and in particular teaching pelvic health or pelvic care to acupuncturists. You know, how I really got into pelvic health, and I guess before that, the predecessor was women's health, was that my mom, while I was in the womb, was a nurse, and she was actually offered a job to work in what became a women's health community center. And it was herself, another nurse, two nurse practitioners, and an office staff, and like one philanthropist that, had a vision. And so these 6 or 7 women came together in a rural town in northern New Hampshire, which is a highly conservative area. And they put women's health in the forefront, really for the state. They were the first clinic of their type. They were taking care of young high school aged women who had gotten pregnant, providing them with options, providing them with support and prenatal care, which they didn't have access to previously. And so I think that the vibration within the womb that I received was like, you're going to do something with this. And it wasn't clear right away. I sort of always wanted to go into some type of medicine, and that was really inspiring and compelling to me. But this journey into women's health and then eventually pelvic health was just kind of like one tick at a time that sort of got me closer and closer. And now, as I'm teaching around the United States and beyond, my mom travels with me, which is one of the coolest things. She's, pretty much retired now. Yeah, it's cool, right? So she's pretty much retired. And so she gets to be with me and travel with me. And I get to be with her and experience life with her. And acupuncturists have so many questions for someone who spent that amount of time in women's health, community health. And she has such cool insight as her program has developed over the years. But there's like this really nice sort of familial lineage connection that has come through what I do. And that's not really my credentials. People can read about those if they're super interested in what my credentials are, but that is really the energetic story. And it goes beyond that. We're Italian, and my family in Italy, we actually visited them for the first time this past year. And they're actually doctors as well, allopathic doctors, but they're doctors and they specialize in women's health as well. So it's really cool to sort of have this full circle experience and to lean in. Like when I first heard your dedication on your podcast to all the grandmothers and aunties, I was just like, seriously, like this is so much of the undercurrent of what has happened in my life and the lineage of the medicine that I'm sharing. And so I felt immediately connected to you before you even knew who I was.
Well, I have to say, I've never started an interview wanting to cry, and I'm already wanting to cry, and I've already had like waves and waves of chills as you share your introduction. Thank you so much for sharing so much of the background and the personal energetic side of your story and your family story. It's so powerful. And this is exactly why I think I've been asked to bring Yinspired into the format that it is because these type of stories aren't often in the bio. They're not in the professional bio, right? It's not how we lead at the beginning of a conference or even in class. And so thank you. That means okay, I'm just going to let the tears fall if they want to fall, but thank you for sharing that from the heart. So thank you. Thank you. And had I known, I would have invited your mother. Maybe we're going to have another one where we invite your mother, because I know that she probably has so much wisdom that it'd just be like mic drop after mic drop.
She's pretty special. She's really special, and I'm sure she'd be willing to do that. So apparently, stay tuned, folks.
Stay tuned for the next episode. Well, thank you to your mama. Do we want to share her name now or wait till later?
Yeah, for sure. We can share her name now. So my mom is Patricia, or Patty Couture. And for anyone that's taken my classes, they know Patty really, really well. She holds their hands when they cry because as we're working with pelvic acupuncture, so often that happens. She helps them find the bones of the pelvis because sometimes we don't learn that in acupuncture school. And she keeps me really grounded. And she's really, really special.
A big shout out to Patty Couture.
You got me going with the tears now.
You're with us and I can feel you, and we will see if we can welcome this into another Yinspired episode. I am just so touched in what we have to unfold today. So did you grow up then in rural New Hampshire?
I did. Yeah, I was really fortunate. I grew up in rural New Hampshire, and my parents had a lake house up even further north on the border of Canada. And then they also had a space where I'm living now, which is down near the beach on the coast of Maine and New Hampshire. So I feel really fortunate because I was able to experience kind of the medicine of the mountains and also the medicine of the ocean.
I have an idea from Hawaii because we have that same geographical reference to the land and what that means. But what do you mean when you say medicine of the mountain and medicine of the water or medicine of the ocean?
That's great. We're just going to go real deep, real fast here today, I guess. I love that about you. So I think, the medicine of the water, right? It has this power to it. And that power can be frightening, right? And as we know, we're both practitioners of acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Chinese theory. And so water really has that power to it. Yet it also has a bit of an effervescent quality to it. And I think that duality provides an opportunity to get to know yourself and to get to know yourself within the elements. And I think being on the beach in particular, because there are less plants per se, especially in cold, New England, we've got a rocky coastline. There's sand and stuff, but there's not a lot of seaweed and a lot of things that are growing. Less creatures, especially close to shore, than we might see in the Caribbean or something like that. So it was kind of this medicine of vacancy and vastness and profound depth and reflection, really. And I found that quieting. The sound of the waves I found particularly quieting in contrast with what I experienced like at our lake house, which was, peepers and fish jumping and, critters in the woods, like rustling branches. Like there was always something making noise and always something that you could pass your attention to, and connect with. And to me, this was quiet. And I really, really felt attracted to that quiet nature for respite and, like I said, reflection. Whereas the wood or the mountains or whatever it might have been, all the other bits were like the yang of it all. It was like the campfire and the sounds and the do this and the explore this and the make an experiment and have some type of experience. Where when I was down at the sea, it was like, just be.
My mind is blowing over and over again because I don't think I've ever just stopped to reflect on just the sounds. If you just say ocean or visualize a beach, if you've been to one, not everyone has had that opportunity, and you have certain sounds that come up, right? And then you think about mountain and the certain sounds in the mountainous area are vastly, vastly different. I had never actually thought about it in that particular way. Thank you so much. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It creates a huge imprint into our energetic being.
I think it does. I think it really does. And I think some people may find, and if I reflect, I'm not like a big hiker or anything, but I can reflect in the winter of either a hike or a ski or something like that. And those moments at the peak of winter time when it's really, really cold, the top of a mountain has that similar vibe that the ocean has. But generally when I was in those spaces, right, it was noisy. It was active because there were so many creatures abound.
That's so powerful to think about too. I think a lot of us use our vision as a way to really orient ourselves to the world around us. And we get a lot of visual cues to help us understand if we're safe. Are we having fun? Should I be scared? And what I hear you saying is more the connection with the land was through sound, right? The sounds that you were hearing.
I never thought of it. Yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way. The way I described it definitely was very auditory focused. I definitely have the visual images. Like I can see the visuals as I describe the auditories, and I can smell and even perhaps taste and feel some of those things. Being that I'm still in New Hampshire, they're very close from a tangible, relatable component because I'm still here. So yeah, but there was definitely an auditory component. I don't know what that means about me, but here we are.
You'll get this. I think the listeners who've studied Chinese medicine and philosophy will also get this. Don't we connect the ears and sound with the kidneys? And isn't kidneys,
Oh
we
my
talk
gosh,
about
yeah.
kidneys, not just the organs, but like the system, its functionality and its connection with sound, but also with reproduction and the pelvis.
I mean, there's our perfect full circle connection right there.
It's who you are. It does seem
Yes.
like you said, the seeds were being planted when you were in your mother's womb in that watery nature. It always still blows my mind every time I think about that process of like the first 40 weeks in a uterus is that's a water environment. Our first introduction to life is in a water environment because we all think of ourselves as like breathing air and how important is air and oxygen, but what our spirit, what our souls, what our blueprints were actually created in were water.
Fascinated by that myself. And actually, obviously, I have a connection to the sea. I love like diving and snorkeling and being in the water. And I love the sound. Let's just keep going with it because we already just went down that rabbit hole. I love the sound of the water when you're underwater in particular, like the almost nothingness of it that just has kind of this gentle whooshing. And even when the ocean is angry, it's still like this whooshing sound if you're underneath where the waves are crashing. So that is a sound that I'm really attracted to, and I think probably it does remind us of the womb. I wish we had memory of the womb. And I think since we're going a little woo-woo already, I think probably people can recall that with different types of therapies and whatnot. But to have, real convincing womb memory of one's experience could be really fascinating. I guess it could also be really troubling if that was a challenging time in the mom's life experience, right? But there's definitely a lot of emotion and a lot of intrigue there.
I'm a water person too. I mean, I think astrologically, cosmically, I'm a lot of fire, air, but for me, for as long as I can remember, water has been my church. The ocean is my church. Being on water, in water, underwater. And when you said that sound underwater, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because if we define a church, a temple, a place of worship as a place where you connect with your version of God's spirit, the name you're going to call it, for me, when I go underwater and I hear that everything and nothing sound of being underwater, that's what I experience. That's why I call it my church. Yeah. So even when you said, because I was thinking, oh, I wonder if she's ever been in water when it's really rough above, but it sounds like you have, because the minute you dive down, just past the whitewash, so peaceful. That whooshing sound is there. I hadn't thought about this until just now. Have you ever heard an ultrasound when they're doing the ultrasound of baby or babies, and it has that whooshing sound? And really that whooshing sound is of the heart, but it has a very, very similar resonance.
It sure does. I think we're soul sisters.
right now. Like, oh my goodness, the number of connections I've never put together until this moment is just, it's going off. The sparks are flying right now. So thank you. Okay, we went deep and we're going to continue to go deep. But for a moment, I'm going to pull us back up. We're going to take a breath above water now, because I think a lot of people will be curious, because you grew up in a very Western medicine perspective with your mom's work. You have a background in physical therapy as well as in Chinese medicine. At what point, like, what came first? Was it you started in Western medicine, you took the physical therapy route and then decided, or how did that look for you? Because how do you go from one into the other and then back into integrating?
Yeah, for sure. I knew you were going to ask this actually. And I was thinking back to it today. I graduated from physical therapy school and I did like a lot of things about physical therapy. I think biomedicine, anatomy, and physiology in particular is interesting to me. I like the science of it. And now I love layering that with the energetics, but I liked the science of it. And I think honestly, for me, to be grounded in the science of it was really important for where I am now. So I don't regret the pathway. But it was literally my first job. So I had first month of my first job. So I had just taken boards, had just moved into an apartment in a new town in Western New Hampshire, and had this, real job. I wasn't bartending to make money anymore. I was being a PT, and acupuncture was included for like part of our benefits package. There was a physiatrist from, I think he was from China. He was from China, and he offered acupuncture to all of the staff members. And I was like, hey, yeah, this is cool. Let's do this. And so I had a session with him, and I was having some digestive stuff, after college, after the stress of everything that was going on. I'm sure I was spleen chi deficient, and, everything was a little fussy. And I felt better, after like 3 or 4 sessions, and I was like, wow, this is great. I'm going to keep going. And then I met a gentleman in the lunch lobby one day, and he was like, hey, I have this program at the local college, and it's focusing on shiatsu and acupressure. And I'm like, dude, I just graduated. Like, come on. And I'm like, if I was going to do anything, I'd go to acupuncture school. And he's like, you know what? Just come and like take these East Asian classes. So I take the classes and I like fall in love. And I'm like, I can't go back to school right now. Like, I just got done. Like, I cannot do this. And so I didn't. But what I decided to do is learn everything I could about Chinese medicine. And I did. I just started reading, all the classic books. Like, I looked at every, acupuncture school that was out there and the books that they recommended. I just started reading them. So I sort of knew a bunch about TCM, certainly before I ever even went to acupuncture school. And then I started, before it was cool, like I did all these things before it was cool, which is kind of like, what my mom was doing with women's health. And I went to a fellowship in dry needling, actually. So all you acus, I know you're going to put your guards up right now, and that's okay. You should. But this was before it was cool. So it was actually a full program. It was like 200 hours on each body part and getting tested on each body part and really emphasizing that this medicine is a Western translation of what was Eastern. Now that lens is really, really different, and I understand that. But that was my opening to sticking needles in people. And once I began sticking needles in people, it was not long after that I was like, oh my gosh, this medicine is so, so much bigger than what I'm doing on an orthopedic level. And why are people's sleep and digestion and hormones getting better when we're working on their ankle or we're working on their, back or whatever it is? And it was at that point, I knew at some point I would go back to acupuncture school. And it was the point when the dry needling schools started to pop up. There wasn't just the one anymore that offered the fellowship program. It was the weekenders. And I was like, I am no longer in integrity with this medicine, and I want to be in integrity with the medicine. And so that's when I went back to acupuncture school.
We've been in practice now for a long time.
Oh gosh. I graduated in 2019 from acupuncture school. So not actually that long ago. So there was quite a transition, and I've been in practice since 2007 officially.
Did you continue with your PT career while you went through acupuncture school to kind of support yourself through that time period? Because acupuncture school is not a weekend. It's not even a year. We're talking 3 to 4 years. I don't know what program you went to.
Yeah. So I'll kind of walk you, I'll fill in the gaps there because there were some. While I was sort of reading all the Chinese medicine textbooks, I worked a couple of jobs, for other companies, but then I very quickly ended up opening a private practice. And so I had an established private practice already when I went to acupuncture school. So I had an established practice and, it was not a exercise based PT clinic. That was never who I was. Honestly, it was a very heavy dry needling and manual therapy based clinic. And that was and has been so much of my bread and butter, I guess, for those years. And so I was able to maintain my practice while I went to school because I went to, as I said, I'd sort of learned so much about TCM that I really wanted to get into Spirit of the Points. And I didn't want more restriction, to be honest. I really wanted to know about the spirit. I wanted to go deep into the spirit. So I went to a 5-element school and that was amazing because they had a practitioner track available. So because I'd already had a doctorate in PT, I did not have to take anatomy. I didn't have to take any of these basic classes because I'd already had them. So I was able to travel there for 1 week a month for 3 years and get my clinical hours half there, half here. And then I was able to kind of come full circle and introduce acupuncture into my practice pretty seamlessly at that point in time.
That makes me so excited because any other practitioner out there right now who might be, their interest is piqued, you don't have to necessarily go back to school the way everyone else did, which is all day, every day for 4 years. There are tracks for working healthcare professionals. That is so exciting to hear. You might have some people reaching out to you wanting to know that program and more details about that, but that makes me really excited. And also, I just want to say thank you. Not that I own this medicine, not that any of us do, but I just had a conversation the last episode. One of the last episodes I released was on cultural stewardship and giving credit where credit is due and knowing where one feels in integrity and out of integrity and then following the path of integrity. Even though it's easy to say, it can be very, very hard to do. And I'm just honoring that and saying, I see it in you and I hear it in the way that it was resonating with you. And that's hard to do because you easily could have stayed the course. It sounds like you have and have had a successful practice. There was no need to change. And yet something in you was knocking.
It goes beyond that, because I could teach pelvic dry needling to PTs and I could make a lot more money doing that, but I don't. I teach pelvic care to acupuncturists through the lens of Chinese medicine. And we do muscle specific L.Ac point needling, which is really what dry needling is, but we do a lot more than that too. It did. Integrity felt like at this age and stage in my life, it just felt like the most important thing, and why do I want to do something else?
And you were called though. What was it for you? Was it a calling? What made you start to realize you're going to take this path? You're already reading the books, but then there was that moment where you had to make a decision. You had that and you listened to it and you followed it. Do you remember what that was?
You know what? I can tell you what the moment was. I was a TA for Ken Coles. He's a Qigong teacher. He's an acupuncturist. He's in Ohio. He's a brilliant, brilliant craniosacral therapist as well. And I was TAing for one of his classes, which are applying acupuncture principles to craniosacral. So this is another one of the things that I did so that I didn't go to acupuncture school is I took all of his classes. There's 4 or 5 of them. And then I TA'd for him for at least twice for each class, probably more than that. And so I said, Ken, if you could do one thing differently, what would it be? When we were at dinner one night. And he had done his acupuncture license through apprenticeship. And he said, you know what? I'd go to acupuncture school. And I was literally okay, can you write me a letter of recommendation? And I'll send it in tomorrow.
That's powerful.
And so, yeah. So, and the other TA, Jonathan Gissel, is another acupuncturist. He's amazing. He's out in Seattle. He came in the next morning and I was like, hey, by the way, last night I decided I'm going to go to acupuncture school. Can you write me a letter? So that's how it happened. And I got the acceptance letter after that. And it was pretty exciting. And for those who are listening, who want to know where I did go to school, I went to the Institute of Taoist Education and Acupuncture in Louisville, Colorado, near Boulder. And it's a 5-element school. It was a great school. I think all acupuncture schools are a little bit disorganized, and I think that builds resilience and it also builds character. But when I really look back at my education now that I have time away from it, I'm really, really grateful for that experience. And I'm super glad that's where I chose to go.
Really impressed by your spin on the academic chaos that can happen in these programs and how that it builds resilience and perspective. Thank you for pointing that out, because it does. And every program is so different, and every program has different resources, financial, time, faculty, staff, etc. And so every program is so, so different. And there is a lot to that. So yes, for everyone listening who also reflects back, I do too. And I can't say I'm as positive necessarily as you are, but maybe this is the turning point. Maybe from today forward, I'll see it as more of a resilience path rather than a frustrating one. So thank you for that. So here you are. Yeah, here you are.
Here we are.
Yeah, here you are. And I'm so excited to learn so much from you today. You're a pelvic health specialist. Do you integrate in your practice everything from physical therapy, the cranial sacral, the acupuncture, Chinese medicine? What does that look like today?
Yeah, so I'm not trained in Chinese herbs. So I do some work with Western herbs, but I'm not trained in Chinese herbs. So that's good, because I have a lot of things in the toolkit already that adding one more thing that's complex would be hard for me to add in. But the way my sessions really look for clients coming in for pelvic health is that we develop a foundation, right? We connect and build rapport, and I find out about them. And then beyond that, we sort of start to work with their body and build their system in a way that is going to support healing. I'm really a proponent of getting that foundation really, really strong. So I like to clear AE, I like to clear blocks, I like to see what we have going on with pattern and kind of layer that with then where do we go with the pelvis before we actually get into needling the pelvis. It's sort of funny because a question I get commonly is like, are you going to be needling my vagina? And it's like, well, let's first talk about the anatomy. And no, I'm not going to be needling the vagina. So I like to work a real gentle approach. We want to build up to where we're working with the muscles of the pelvic floor, where the client feels really, really safe, because this is also an area where there's a lot of emotional trauma, right? So I want to be sensitive to that. And clients, as you know, are not always open to sharing everything on day one. So it takes time for those layers to unfold. And I like to really work in a methodical way. There we go.
That supports methodical way. Yeah.
That supports the client where they are, at that time, space, reality of their life.
I love what you said about building rapport as a foundation, because it is. And I use this symbology all the time of a pyramid or building a house. Is if you don't have a solid foundation, why build the house? Why build the pyramid? It's all going to crumble. And you're talking about building the foundation as part of the first phase or the first steps of this method of establishing rapport. And what I hear you really saying is, another word I would insert, and maybe you can tell me if I'm making too much of assumption, is you're having to build a lot of trust. Because if you're going to be talking about reproductive health, talking about body parts that are often taboo in the United States and other cultures around the world, when you're talking about sexual health, physiology, pathology, for a lot of people, just those topics alone might make them kind of like tighten up or lean back or pull away from the conversation. So how, from your perspective, from your practice, what goes into building that trust? I mean, it's not just your quote unquote initial consultation.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
No, for sure. Yeah. Right on. But we got to call it out. The initial consultation can be like awesome, and you're still not going to get there. So I think, honestly, for me, it's part of the path, right? Like, even though it's obvious now that women's health or pelvic health could have been at my forefront and now is at my forefront, my path really led me to sports medicine. Like, that's where I was living. That's what people were coming to see me for. And then they kept coming to see me because they felt good, right? And it's like, dude, I can only needle your calf so many times. Like, what's going on, And so eventually it became that people just started opening up. Like, hey, I want to talk about this, which could have been the topics of infertility. It could have been painful periods. It could have been leakage. It could have been constipation. It could have been, pelvic floor dysfunction, which didn't really have a name. Again, I did that before it was cool. So I left the door open because of the way that my practice was, I just left the door open and they kind of kept walking in. And it's like, okay, I got to ask better questions. Like, what are you still here for? Because you just surfed, your biggest competition ever, and we don't have back pain anymore. Or, you just played at the top level of basketball, in the world. And you're coming back. Whenever you come back from Asia, you're coming back and you're getting sessions. So what's going on there? What do we still want to see? Why is this working? Why is this compelling to you? And what do you want to see improvements with that I don't know? Because I want to be able to help you with those. And that's really like the me leaving the door open allowed the universe to say, hey, there's this whole area out here of stuff that people aren't talking about, and someone needs to talk about it. And your clients trust you. So let's let them talk to you about it and start learning about that. And so that's what I did.
One of the things that really stood out to me is you said, as a practitioner, like owning up to the hurdles that you were facing, I got to ask better questions. I mean, that's really profound what you just shared, because if your patients are talking to you, there's a difference between just hearing what they're saying and listening. Like, I can hear all day long. I can hear the da 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 da, but how are you listening to that? Like, what are they actually saying? What is the desire under the desire? What is the want under the want? And that's what it sounds like you were talking about. That's what you're getting at.
Absolutely. And I think, I read something somewhere that there's like this research that shows you have to like ask 7 questions to actually this is not East Asian, to get to the root of what somebody actually desires or wants or has a problem with. And that was interesting to me. So now I sort of play this game with myself, and I have an intern now. So I'm sort of playing this game with her too, to see how fast she can really get there. But to see if we can do it less than 7 questions.
Yeah, I think I've heard something similar. I don't remember the number, but I've been very fascinated by motivational questioning. This idea that your patients will, or your client or whoever you're sitting in front of, will tell you all the answers you need, because technically they know them.
Mm-hmm.
We're just often afraid to admit we know our own answers. And so that's why we're reaching out, right? A lot of times.
Exactly.
Now, for us, in our process of building that rapport and trust, when we're talking about the body, it is true that we don't know our bodies as well as we might know other things in our lives, because education, culture, religion, taboo, so many reasons why we don't know how to talk about our body. And so that's part of the ongoing rapport and trust we're building, is by asking more questions, and not just more questions, like you said, asking better questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know so many acupuncturists because, I teach now. So I'm like connecting with acupuncturists on like a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
And this thing about trust, right? And like getting into the depth of it is key, because we all say the same thing, right? Like, we love those clients that come back month after month forever for the rest of their life. That's great for business, and we love that they love it. But like, let's go deeper with them. Let's like really give them this value. And that was what it was for me. It was like, I can keep taking your money, but why am I still taking it? Like, you tell me why I'm still taking your money. And I think that's how I asked it at first, because I was just like really perplexed why it's like, hey, your back is better. What are we still doing here? So I think that's what it was. And I have like a strength and a fault, right? Which is that like, I am just honest. Like, what I'm thinking, because I'm saying what I'm thinking. I can't lie. So I think that's part of the aspect of trust for me, and why that's become so important.
As a practice management teacher, I talk about asking questions a lot and asking better questions. But what you just said falls under a different category, same, but different, of, unless you ask your patients, unless you ask your client, you're only ever making assumptions. And when we make assumptions, we might actually be missing the target. We might be missing it altogether. And so I love what you said, is like, it's a blessing and a curse, where you're like, why are you still paying me? You're better. Like, sometimes we have to get that honest with our patients, right? Like, your knee hasn't hurt for 3 sessions. Why are you still coming? Did I forget to kick you out? Did I forget to tell you our treatment plan is done? But then you got feedback and they said, well, I want to keep coming because of, and then they would insert the next thing, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet they love that about you. If you were to ask clients and people who keep coming back, why do they keep coming back to you? They're like, oh, because I know she's not going to lie to me. Like, that's huge.
You just got my number, girl. That's it.
That's huge. I want to come to see you because I want to know my practitioner's not lying. Yeah, talk about transparency and building trust. It's like, you know what you're going to get. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm just going to tell you how it is. Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
And
Yeah.
that must be really refreshing for a lot of your clients too. And then also, in some ways, I speak of this talking about pelvic health. You're talking everything from pretty much the belly button to the pelvis, right? Our reproductive organs, our external reproductive organs. Is that kind of like,
I mean, yeah, kind of. And then when we
yeah,
think about the vagus nerve, or we think about the abdominal muscles, or we think about the paraspinals, or we think about the
true,
hamstring
true.
attachment to the ischial tuberosity, right? So the pelvis goes beyond the pelvis. But yes, essentially, we're predominantly focused from the belly button to, the base of the pelvic bowl for sure. And I think that's the area of trust, right? I think that's the area where trust comes from. That's the sense of the kidneys and the bladder, that constellation, the pelvis itself, because that's where the kidneys and the bladder are housed, and that's where the essence is. So I think that goes back to really our foundational being as beings. I want to get into that, right? Because the essence is there. And I think this is something important. We've had so much fun on this talk, and we're definitely like in and out of the depth of it and the joy of it, because there's so much joy that we're having in this connection, which is amazing. But where essence lives within, let's call it the home of the pelvis, the residence of the kidneys, right? It sort of makes sense that we can have pelvic dysfunction, which is established for the purpose of protection, right? Because we always want essence to be protected. If we want a couple of things in the body to be protected, it's going to be Jing and it's going to be Shen, right? Those are the first things that the body wants to protect. So our essence and our empress of our being are going to be the most inside and the most tightly wound together and bound if protection is necessary. And so often, because of the taboo, because of the cultural stigmas, these areas aren't acknowledged and accepted and discussed, and lineage is not passed down, information is not conveyed, right? And so we don't know what's going on. Like anatomically, like let's just go to an anatomical level. On an anatomical level, there's so much happening beyond the belly button. And I feel like every child should take an anatomy class just because they need to understand what's happening in their body system, not just the reproductive system. I think that's really important too. But like we don't even know like that we digest food basically. You know what I mean? Like these things are limited. And why do we not have an understanding of our bodies? And back to your earlier point of we're disconnected. Yeah, no kidding. How could we be connected when we're not educated? And, parents don't know because they were never educated unless they're, in some field of such. But this is a missing part, certainly in American culture, perhaps in other cultures as well. But I feel like there's an absence here. And then for some reason, we're confused why we have pelvic pain incidence so high, why we have urinary incontinence issues so high, why we are given, I saw a meme about this. You have a baby, you're given, a mesh diaper and basically said good luck and completely overwhelmed, right? Like that's what we're going through. Why is there dysfunction? And that's what happens when there's an episiotomy. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy that we aren't educating. And so this builds this sense of we have to protect ourselves. The body is smart. The body always wants homeostasis. We do learn that in science class, hopefully. The body always wants homeostasis. It's going to find it one way or another. So you hurt your ankle, your body's going to, shift the weight off that ankle so that it doesn't hurt as much, right? Well, the same is true. When the body feels threatened, when the body feels confused, it builds walls to protect itself because it doesn't want you to feel pain. As we know as Chinese medicine practitioners, that the more that we sort of build these walls of protection, the loud channels hold that, right? And they can only hold that for so long. They only have so much energy to hold that. And then what happens? Things start to overflow and basically the shit hits the fan. And we are at a place of, complete dysfunction on multiple levels. And that's when clients start to come and see us. And at that point, unfortunately, it's really hard to make an impact. And that makes me so sad.
Yeah. It makes me sad too. And what I hear you saying is the root of it is if we could reconnect with our bodies, if we could have a more of a curiosity and exploration of our bodies at a younger age, I wonder if things would look different in your clinic, in my clinic, and across the country and globe.
Yes.
I wonder, and I mean, I can't say I wonder. I see this from where I'm sitting in the paradigm of macrocosm, microcosm. We know it's not just certain bodies with dysfunction. I know I read them when I was reading a lot of your articles, but I was blown away by the statistics in terms of the number of people who have some form of pelvic dysfunction.
Yeah. So
Right?
pelvic
Can you
pain
share with
and
some of
dysfunction.
that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I cut you off. Pelvic pain and dysfunction in women is, or those assigned female at birth, is 32 to 33%. And in men, it's 16%. So these are like high numbers. And also, there are statistics that say 85% of, I think this was women. I don't want to misquote it, but it's like a really high number of women that don't feel comfortable talking to their provider about pelvic pain. And like that is frightening to me. And like, I mean, no wonder they started talking to me about it, because I'm the open book and I'm here and their back doesn't hurt anymore. So they trust me. Of course, they started talking to me about it because I was open and available for this conversation, even though at the time I knew nothing about pelvic pain or pelvic dysfunction. So the numbers are off the chart, which tells me that Western medicine is failing this population. This is an underserved population. And one thing acupuncturists are really good at, we are notorious for this, is being able to help people that have not been able to be helped otherwise. And I realize that there are PTs out there that are specializing in pelvic health and OTs out there that are specializing in pelvic health, and some of them are doing amazing things. I think as acupuncturists, we're positioned even better because we have the complexity of understanding the biomedicine, the spiritual medicine, and the pattern, which is what's happening within the organ system or the body kingdom. And I think that positions us to be the provider for supporting pelvic health.
Can I just give you all the sparkle fingers, jazz hands, and snaps on that? I couldn't agree more. I mean, there is a massive gap. It's so understudied, under-researched. There's no money. I'm going to share this with you, but I'm probably going to cut this out because I feel like this is something I'm not quite ready to share on the podcast. So I went down the rabbit hole last night because I'm starting to finally recognize and learn that I really want to understand money, right? As it's just a currency, how it flows. I decided, I was like, okay, I figured out what my first investment's going to be, honey. And he was like, great, what is it? And he's been asking me this for years. I'm like, I'm going to invest in women's health. And he's like, great, let's go. And I was like, okay, how do I start this? Like, what am I going to look into? There are zero mutual funds, zero ETF, unless I'm a venture capitalist with a few million to put in somewhere. There is zero ways for someone like me with just a little extra cash here or there that wants to invest in women's health. And I went off the rocker. I was livid. I was angry. I was ready to break things in the house. I was like, what world do we live in where 50% of the population is absolutely being ignored? Period. Right. Follow the money trail. There's the trail. There is no trail.
There is none. Yeah. I did the same thing. Like, honestly, we're seriously like so connected. I literally did the same thing about 4 years ago. I was in Colorado at my best friend's, and she's a economics professor and very good at investments. And I was like, okay, like, I've got this money, let's play around with it. And so I told her what I wanted to do. And she was like, no. And I'm like, oh, come on. And she's like, no, there's literally nothing to invest in that fits that profile. And she's like, there's a huge problem here. And I'm like, yeah, there is. And we just went off on it, had a glass of wine, and,
well, maybe I will keep this in the recording then, because I think it's important for people to know, like, you have questions, follow the money trail, because my husband tells me that all the time. And I'm like, ha, 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 I get it. And it does make me wake up in a different way because I am very much an optimist. And, of course, there'll be something there. And when I found zilch, and I thought maybe I just don't know how to research, I pulled in all the tools I knew how to pull in. Zero.
Yeah.
What does that say? Economically, something like under 5% of innovation is in women's health, even though we're 50% of the population. And the majority of lifetime physical illness diseases, there's a higher proportion of women with these diagnoses. What?
I mean, it's
WTF?
just like, it's so unreasonable that it's hard to even comment on, because it's like, I can't you know what I mean? I can't believe it. It's surreal.
Literally, we have all the world's knowledge in every one of our pockets in this tiny phone, like all the world's knowledge that's ever existed in our pocket, but we have no way to invest in women's health. If I have $1,000, I can go buy Bitcoin, but I can't invest in women's health.
Yeah, you can invest in AI
I
like
can invest in
crazy,
AI, but I can't
right?
invest in women's health. Like, what? Sorry, I took us on a totally different tangent.
Here we are.
Here we are. We're going to go down in the water for a bit. I came up for breath in the storm of the waves. We're going to dive back down for a bit and hear the whoosh whoosh sound. I would love for you to share for those listening who don't understand the term Shen. You said that that the foundation of our pelvis is really like the foundation of our essence, the Jing, the physical body. You also use this term Shen. Can you explain that to our listeners?
Yeah. Shen is our spirit, right? And one thing that doesn't translate well, and I haven't found all the language to describe Chinese terms because there are so many words to choose when it comes to a Chinese translation of a word. But essentially, it's the spirit and the spirit embodied within us. So I sort of think of it as the spark of heaven, but not in a religious sense, just the spark of heaven that exists within each of us that makes us who we are, living how we're living, and being how we're being.
Beautiful. Thank you. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about safety and how our pelvis reflects function or dysfunction, it's both a reflection of our physical safety as well as our Shen or spirit safety. And so what I hear when you say that, it's a reflection of both. We may not actually have a physical reason why we have pelvic pain or constipation or anything, again, that below the belly button. We might not
Yeah.
actually have a physical trauma or injury or childbirth or anything that cause physical pain, and you could still have a dysfunction because of something not seen, an emotion, repetitive thought, a spiritual conundrum. Is that what I hear you saying correctly, or am I
Absolutely.
interpreting too much?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really, emotional turmoil of any kind can have a physical implication, right? I mean, the body wants us to listen. The body wants us to hear what it is saying. If we can't hear it or we're choosing not to hear it, then it wants to show us. And it gets louder and
Mm.
louder and louder, right? So, and so often nowadays, because I do specialize in pelvic health, right? I literally have clients come in who are like, this is because of this emotional thing that happened when I was a child. This is because this emotional thing happened as an adult. This is because I have not processed my divorce yet. I was married to this guy for 23 years. We have 5 children together. And you know what? I still don't know why we're divorced. And it doesn't make sense to me. And I have pelvic dysfunction. And I know it's not from having 5 children because I've done the work to make sure that that bit's okay. And it's like, it's emotional. Help me with the emotional piece. And I love those clients when they come in because they're right on. They know. And, I guess that's another point to say is that clients have the wisdom, like you said already earlier, right? They will tell us. If we give them the opportunity to, they will tell us all the things and they will give us the pathway to treat them. I mean, the points literally have uses, right? Acupuncture points have uses, and traditional Chinese medicine gives us those uses and those functions. And they also have names. And the name of the points so often will align with what the client is saying, what they're feeling, how they're expressing themselves, how they are in relationship to themselves. The points have names, you know? The ancient Chinese were so smart in how they named these points, and they do what they say they'll do, you know? They bring yang, or they bring yin, or they bring water, or they, open and close a gate, right? Like they do all of these things, and that is helpful. right? For someone who might feel stuck, for someone who might feel drowning, who might feel overwhelmed, all of these things that the names of the points give us their purpose and their function and their spirit. And like that, I love so much the spirit story that goes along with what we do as acupuncturists.
I think this is the perfect time for you to just go and riff on the names, the spirit of the name. Because while we do have a lot of Chinese medicine practitioners listening to this, and they get that, they've learned that, maybe they haven't memorized them all, and they understand that a point has a physical but also a subtle or a not seen nature to it. What we're talking about is the Shen, this unseen part. It has a spirit of the point. There are a lot of people who listen who are their minds are gonna be like, what did she just say? There are spirits to the point as well. So, and I know you love talking about this. I've heard you in other podcasts. I've read several of your articles. So can we go down that road? Can we jump into this wave?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we can. I wasn't prepared. Usually I prepare my favorite points for the day based on what we need. So I'm going to be unprepared and just go. The point that's really coming through today, which makes so much sense for where we've gone since the beginning of this podcast, is Kidney 6 Illuminated C. And so that point, if we think about the name Illuminated C, and this is how I work with the spirit, right? So you can look up the translation, and there's multiple translations of every single point name. And I always say pick the one that like you connect with in that moment. That's what you need to remember about this point. That's what you need to know. And then sit with it. If someone says to you, experience illuminated sea, what would that be like? And to me, I see water and I see light, I see depth, and then I start thinking about reflection. I start thinking about vastness and possibility. You might be having your own experience with it, right? And I want to ask you what that is afterwards. But if we think about this point and someone comes in and they're particularly confused, they don't know where to go. There's a little bit of darkness there. There's a shadow that's kind of following them. I mean, this point is a great point for them to experience, especially someone who's on a fertility journey. They don't really know where to go next. And the doctor's saying, you know, you've got 2 follicles and we're at the end of the journey, right? And maybe that is. But if we can get them to the reflection pool, if we can get them there to sit with themselves for 28 minutes, what might they see then? What can they birth from that place? And maybe it's not over. Maybe they're going to try some more. And that's okay. If they are, we're here for it. And if they're not and they're done, and sometimes that happens, right? They're done and they're ready to be done. Like giving them the autonomy to be able to say that in front of us without judgment is just so profound and so humbling and so honoring to what the next phase of their life is going to look like. So I think that's a cool thing with the spirits. And I think Illuminated Sea is just a good point for today. But what does it make you think of?
Well, I had chills come over me again, these truth bumps as you were talking about Illuminated Sea. Because when you were describing it, again, I dive too, and I was imagining there's ocean when it's cloudy out, and then there's the ocean when the sun's out. And when the sun's out underwater, you can see the sunbeams. And at the bottom, you can see the ripples of light at the bottom, the sun at the bottom of the ocean, and how sparkly. And even though it's not crisp, there's a crispness to it. So there's more of clarity to it. And then as you were talking, one of my favorite sayings, pieces of wisdom, it's like a family motto, really, which is no mud, no lotus. And it made me think about how Kidney 6 takes us from that muddy bottom. We need the mud, right? We need the mud. It's part of the nourishment. It's part of the formula here for that beautiful lotus. But Kidney 6 is then that lotus where it's like the blooming of the mud, right? What can we take? What have we learned stewing in the mud, and what can we turn that into? And so, and what I also, okay, one more thing was for people who don't know where the shui, where these acupressure, or where these points are on the body, Kidney 6 is in the ankle. We're not even talking about below the belly button pelvis region. We're talking about a point in the ankle, which to me is even more, is more reflective of the nature of the point in that it's so close to the earth. And so there's also this aspect of roots or our feet on the ground, like really our feet on the ground with clarity.
Yeah. I love that too. Yeah, for sure. That brings up two things. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how we're going to get through, but that brings up two things. Two other points came through, CV4 and CV5, which are Stonegate and First Gate. And I use these points all the time, or Ren 4, Ren 5. I use these points all the time. They are, right on the womb. And so these 2 points are gates. Gates need to open freely and they need to close freely. So I often find with clients that sometimes too much is spilling out and sometimes nothing is spilling out. We're holding on to everything. And so the way that new acupuncture so often works is there's duality, right? Like if there's excess, it'll treat that. If there's deficiency, it'll treat that too. And some of our techniques, help in that process, but the points also know what to do. They know I have to open and close like a door or a gate or a window, right? They all have to open and close freely. But I think that these 2 points in particular, if I wanted to like just go into the spirit of, well, what's it like if there's a gate called First Gate and then there's a gate with a big stone in the way, closed right in front of the womb? What's going to happen? How's that going to feel? They never open. But what if they open freely? We've got some kind of pulley system or some other cool physics system that moves that stone in and out of the way. And the first gate is lubricated, it's oiled up, and it's just like swings open, and the butterflies and the energy and whatever we want to welcome in comes through. Like, that's what we do with acupuncture. Like, how cool.
Dive into Stonegate because I was taught in school that you never needle Ren 5 or CV5 because it causes infertility, that you will create the stone in the gate. So I would love a different perspective on this. I have never needled Ren 5 in all my years.
Seriously?
I've never, because, dogma is real here, right? I drank that punch and I'm going to be a good student. I'm not going to cause anyone infertility. I don't want that karma. So re-educate me. Let me create a new neural pathway here, please.
Okay. All right. I went to a 5-element school. So, CV5 was on the available list of things that we could treat. And so it was really about, and I needle CV5 all the time. And I have a lot of babies in my practice. So I think we're okay.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah. And with fertility clients, I'm needling it. So I think we're good. I think it's a stigma, but I also think our intention, right, with a needle is key. And so when I'm working with Spirit of the Points, and I'm not always working with Spirit of the Points, sometimes I'm working with a true TCM pattern, and that is what we're on. And the intention is to rectify that pattern. And we're not thinking so much about spirit, even if there's an interplay there. But if it's spirit, if it's very specific spirit that we're working on, it's holding the intention. So what is the intention? If there's a block, it feels like there's a block. Like it feels like there's a stone, nothing's passing through or everything's passing through. It's like we need this to move freely. And I just have that visualization while I'm needling. And I think our intention behind what we're doing really does help the process because the medicine is being translated through us. And is it in Taoism? I don't know if it's Taoism or Tai Chi. Like, I know there's a lot of carryover there, but they say that metal is the only element that holds the spirit of someone, which is both frightening and so cool. So that if someone passes on, and you decide to keep their shirt, and it doesn't have metal buttons or anything like that on that, well, it might carry their smell for a while, but it's not going to carry their essence. But their ring is going to carry their essence. I heard that before I actually started even dry needling. And so every time I, touch my needle, which is all metal, I don't use the plastic handled ones, I think about that. And I'm like, a little bit of my spirit is going to be coming through this needle. And I want the medicine to be the primary thing. I want the medicine to come through my spirit, and it's going to be my brand of that medicine. But I want to make sure that's of the highest possible intention and that this is exactly the intention that I want for this client for the highest and best. And so I always start sessions off. We're getting real weird now. I always start sessions off with sort of like almost like a little blessing, which is I'm just welcoming in the highest and best for this client and this experience that we share today and for the greater good of all. And so that's kind of how I start. And then I work from there into what we're doing with our points. And so I would say don't be scared of CV5. At the same time, have an honor for CV5, have reverence, have a connection to it, and let it speak to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I have felt blocks at CV5, at Ren5, when palpating.
Right.
And now that you're now that you're saying that, there's like this humility going on within me right now of that reflects so much of the rest of my life, of how many things have I just taken for word without question? How many things have I haven't really thought about it in many ways, because it's just, I don't want to do harm. And it comes from a good intention place. And also it does reflect a bigger mirror of where I am in life right now too. So I really appreciate you easing that in. And inside I'm laughing and giggling, and then there's still also a part of me like, are you sure you're going to needle that? So I will let this settle. I know that this is the medicine I needed to hear for myself today, just in terms of as being a practitioner. And I really love that you brought in the actual metal of the needle and that imagery, because I think it's so easy if you work with a tool so much, it's just another tool. Like a tool is a tool is a tool. The way a carpenter might get really, really comfortable with a hammer and not recognize how incredible a hammer is. But for us, the needle's so like, yeah, it's a needle. It's no big deal. It's so normalized that we don't even recognize how incredible of a tool it is. And yet we become a conduit in many ways. Like, this medicine has a consciousness of itself. That's my take. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate mail or whatever, but I truly feel like I'm just here to be a conduit. I have so much to learn. I'm such a baby in this medicine, even though I've like dedicated my life, the last 20 years of my life to it. I feel like I'm such a baby, but the more I can be a conduit like that needle is, and that's what metal is. Even we just had our electrical panel changed. Half the time I was giggling because I thought my electrician knew Chinese medicine, because everything he was talking about, metal and conduit, energy and conduction and currency and resonance, I was like, we speak the same language. I have no idea what you're talking about, but we're speaking the same language, right? So to just have that reverence again, like you said, reverence for the point and reverence for the needle as a conduit, and then for ourselves as practitioners, have reverence for that medicine that it is attempting to flow through us if we give it that space to. That's really powerful. That's really, really powerful. And it also reflects that definition of holism or holistic. It's not holistic, just body, mind, spirit. You're talking a holistic on all different levels of practice, from patient communication to how you're showing up, to the medicine itself, and this relationship with the mountains and the sea, bring it full circle, right?
Yeah.
All of that seems to be showing up when we start to work in the realm of the kidneys, of the pelvis, of, yeah, it's beautiful. It's poetic. That's what I'm trying to say. It's poetic.
It is. I really agree. I think it is poetic, and that's what I love about it. And I think the reverence for the needle, for me, really came in because at any moment when I was a PT, not an acupuncturist, at any moment, it felt like, maybe not at the beginning, but over time, when acupuncturists realized that PTs were needling, it was like this could be taken away. And so it gave me a real deep respect for the needle. And for a long time, every single day, I thanked every single needle that I could insert into somebody. Yeah. I don't do that anymore. Maybe I should go back to it. But yeah.
When you said that you do that kind of the opening or a centering with your clients, it reminded me, I used to do that too. And I thought, why don't I do that anymore? I don't know why. Maybe I'll bring that back in again. Um, I want to be really conscious of your time. I don't also want to just kick you off because of time either. So I just want to find out, can I ask one more question maybe, or should we wrap this up? Do you
Of
have?
course you can.
Yeah. I don't want to leave the male body out of this conversation, because we have focused a lot on women. I have a lot of male friends, and I know even from when we were kids all the way now to adults, talk about a taboo topic. Like, it's okay to joke about male parts, but there's really not, it's really a taboo topic too for a lot of males to talk about their pelvic health, digestion, anything having to do with their body. So, can we weave this in? What's important for us to weave into this conversation
Yeah,
about
for sure.
males' health?
Yeah, I think this is, a really important component of pelvic health. And I have had so many coaches. I know this is in your hot seat question. I'm going to answer it now. But I have had so many coaches over the years, friends who are coaches, and they always say you have to niche down your business, niche down your business, niche down your business. And yes, I specialize in women's health and pelvic health. Honestly, I see everything in my practice. People still find me for pain. And you know what? I don't say no. The people I say no to are like the people that just don't want to heal. They're not ready for it or something like that. But I don't say no to general acupuncture clients, even though my practice is specialized and that's the majority. At the same time, niching down sort of my teaching, which really came like, it was like the funnel that people had been saying for years. It was like, are you going to go into just women's health? And I'm like, dude, like, I've been doing general forever, right? No, pelvic health is my minimum. And I've always stood that ground. And the reason that I have stood that ground has been because the male clients are actually the first ones that started asking me about their pelvic health, that started talking about constipation that was so bad that they really didn't know what to do. And they didn't like the options that were out there. And then if I didn't help them, they had no one that was willing to help them. And that made me really sad. And also, it was my proclamation at that point to the universe that said, I am not going to turn away, a male population, even though I have spent, the majority of my education and dedication to women's health. I am not going to turn this population down. And my male clients, I still have many of them, they know that. They see on my site women's health and pelvic health, and they still come in and see me anyway. Or they've been my client for a long time, and then they start talking about their pelvic health, and they're like, you're the person that I trust to help me get from where I am to where I want to be. And so, you know what? I think the key is, and also, sorry, I'm long-winded.
Don't be
I've
sorry about
had
it. It's beautiful.
I have had a lot of students lately, male students who are taking my class online or in person, and they want to specialize in men's pelvic health. And I love, love, love that. I love that this is starting to build. This is so exciting. And I would say this to all the male listeners that are out there, or if you're a female or any gender who knows a male who's having a hard time, there are providers out there, regardless of gender, that can help you and can support you. And the key is to start talking about it, because if you are not talking about it, it is not going to improve. And you need support, because these types of things are like a cascade. So over time, this issue that you're having can create a block or a dam, which leads to another issue and another issue and another issue. And the complexity of multiple issues is so much harder to treat than one issue. So if you're having something, and I guess that's regardless of gender, if something is going on, talk about it. And that's true of the pelvis. It's also true of anything that's going on in your body or your mind. Talk about it. Find someone that you can trust. Find someone that will listen to you, where you feel seen, you feel heard, and get yourself support. We don't have to do it alone. And I don't know where that belief came from, but I think it's BS. I think that we are here to be in community, and we're here to help each other. And there are people that can help you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom today. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to follow you, they want to it sounds like you have some online courses. Feel free to talk about those as well. Where can people find you? Where can they learn from you?
So I'm the Pelvic Acu. So on Instagram, at the Pelvic Acu. The website is thepelvicacu.com. We try to keep the branding really, really easy so that people can get in touch easily. I am very happy to have conversations with people and provide connections with my providers that have taken my class throughout the country, and provide those type of connections. Obviously, I don't provide medical advice on social media or anything like that, but I'm an open book, and I do provide a lot of like insight on my social, different topics, talking about prolapses or sinews or whatever you want to get into that might have to do with pelvic health. Chances are I'm talking about it.
That's awesome. I recommend everyone, you have great marketing. I'm curious, do you do your own marketing or have you hired out?
So I have an assistant. Her name is Caitlin, and she is pretty amazing. She forces me to, nicely, gently, she forces me to produce content and to kind of get out there. And she does also encourage the trending reels and things of that nature. But, I've found I had like a hate relationship with it at first. And she's the one who does the posting. Like, I just give her the material. And honestly, that has given me so much more enjoyment as a creator, because I think I'm a provider, like a practitioner, but I'm also, or doctor, whatever, but I'm also like a creative. And obviously in crafting my classes, that was like so much deep, deep creation. It took a really, really long time, years. But these little like micro bites of creation are fun if I don't have to then put it together and make it pretty and figure out what time to post it at and all of these other things. So she really supports that aspect, and I can just be in the role of creator, which I like.
That's awesome to bring in that balance for you as well, so that you really are, you're in integrity in so many ways. And that's really exciting to witness and see. And you have great content. I highly recommend it. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I will have you back on, like I said a million times. And I'm so happy that our chi field was able to make it through this recording and get all the technology on board with us finally. So I like to end our conversations with a rapid fire, just to allow listeners to get to know different parts of you. You have the right to say, absolutely no, I don't want to do this, or you can be game for it. And even in questions, you can say pass. Are you open to playing this little rapid fire
Heck yeah.
round? All right. Thank you so much. Let me pull up my questions. All right. What is the best advice you ever received?
The best advice I ever received was from Bob Cooley, who is he does meridian stretching basically to just really dumb down what he does. He's very into fascia. And he said, "You are the authority of your own health." And that was pretty profound. And it really resonated at that time in my life.
I love that. Okay. I want everyone, this is where we're going to take a pause in this rapid round. And I want everyone to just repeat that. I am the authority of my own health. Repeat that after me. Yeah, repeat that. Shout it. If you're in the car, scream it. That'd be great at an intersection. You have all these people just screaming, I am the authority of my own health. That's the vision I'm having right now. Yeah.
Love it.
Let's repeat it one more time. Everyone repeat it. I am the authority of my own health. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to your teacher. What is the worst advice you ever, oh, you already answered that about niching down.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the worst advice you ever received? Yeah. And at the same time, you have niched down. Pelvic health is a niche for sure.
It is, but I don't say no. You know what I mean? Like I'm niched down now, but I've been fighting that fight for so many years. Like, yeah, I didn't do it for a long time, and I had a successful practice without niching down. And so it was, it's not bad advice, really. It's sort of like bad advice hilariously, because now my niche is so specific. But it's like my joke of bad advice, because anyone who knows me or has known my practice for a really long time has known it to just be, pure balance. Whatever anyone else can't fix, she's got you. They got you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such an important message too. A lot of people don't understand our practices, or acupuncturists across the country. We have more tools than just needles. And for those people who are not practitioners out there, but might be listening as consumers or patients or just curious, is that we often are the last line for people. No medicine is 100% for 100%, of the population, but it gets great results. So if you're listening and you're curious, please reach out to someone. If you don't know where to reach out, send us an email. We'll help you find someone in your area. Okay. Again, so much for this rapid fire. It's like the slow. I'm going to call it the slow. No rapid fires around here. This is the slow fire round. The slow burn. Okay, it just got rebranded to the slow burn. All right. Are you a morning bird or a night owl?
Totally morning.
What's your favorite food treat?
I love popcorn so much.
Too.
Seriously, I'm not surprised. I love to sprinkle herbs onto it, like dill or chives. Like, I love popcorn with herbs.
I thought you said, when you said you were going to sprinkle herbs, you were going to say a Chinese herbal. And I was like, what? I've never even thought about that.
That's a good idea.
But I mean, dill is a medicinal. Yeah. Fennel's a medicinal. Like most of the herbs that we cook with are medicinals. That's a good point.
They are. Totally.
Yeah.
They taste, you have to try this now with your popcorn. Like, just get a little dill or get a little bit of thyme, add a little salt, pepper, whatever
Oh,
your jam is. It's just so good.
I love thyme and I love dill. So I've never added those. My go-to is nutritional yeast.
I
I
do that too.
love
That's a given.
a touch of, yeah, mine is a touch of ghee and a touch of, so clarified butter and a touch of nutritional yeast. And I could eat that all day, every day. Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm having after we hit stop record. All right. What's your favorite tea or beverage?
I love tea. So I am like but I love, okay, here's the deal. Tea bags are fine, but I love the art of making tea. Like, I have my little, tea basket, and sometimes I do it in a French press if I'm making like a big batch, but I love to just like have the raw herbs, have them in the basket, pour the water over them, see the water change color. That makes me really happy. So I love peppermint. I love butterfly pea. I love hibiscus. I love chamomile and lavender. I like to mix them up. Yeah, anything herbal, non-caffeinated.
There's such a ritual to what you just shared, too. Like the process of making your tea, it is a ritual. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thanks.
Do you have a book that changed your life or changed your mindset? A book that you recommend?
Yeah, I love, this is kind of an old book nowadays, but I love Big Magic by Liz Gilbert.
Nice. Finish the sentence. Be the type of person who.
That's a good one. Be the type of person who is in truth, who's in integrity, who's in spirit. I guess I would say be. Because that word, if we think about like a true five elemental perspective, if I'm fire, that might be the type of person who's an inspiration. If I'm water, that's be the type of person who is deep and reflective. So everyone's brand of that message is going to be different. So I would say just be
Mm,
authentically you, whoever you are, and how you want to experience the world. You're in the driver's seat of that. So just do that. Be that.
beautiful. If you weren't doing the current work you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I could have gone like two ways. One is the route that I'm on, and I'm so grateful for that. And I really feel like that is aligned with my Tao for this life. I think the other route that I could have gone was like orthopedic surgeon.
You and I are soul. That is what I was going to be my entire life.
No way. But I think I have one more, and this would probably be
Okay.
my second, but it might be your second as well. I think I'd be a marine biologist.
Ooh, I did look into I did have a dream the other night, so I did look into this, what it would take for me to train dolphins or to be in the water with dolphins all day, every day. Because I had a dream and I was like, "Oh, I can't change careers. I love what I do." And in the dream, I had the realization you can take what you're doing into the dolphin world. And so I woke up and I started researching, what do I need to do to be in the water with dolphins? That's funny. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
okay.
you're not gonna like you're gonna be floored. For years before I started teaching in acupuncture, I actually did healing retreats with dolphins and humans. And if you look behind me, like right above my finger, there's a little dolphin there.
That's crazy. We should talk. I used to run retreats also.
Let's do it.
Maybe this needs to come back around. And I did put it on my vision board. I actually was just looking at it before we got on. I was like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
want to I want to get back into that retreat space. Maybe you and I have to
There's more here.
talk about that later. Yeah, yeah.
There's
Absolutely. Again, for the slow burn round, that's now like 20 minutes long. Okay, this is the last question, I promise. What is your one wish for healthcare?
Yeah, my one with wish for healthcare. And we got to all like, stimulate liver 14, gate of hope for this one. Um, is that we, in our lifetime, we see the transition from reactive healthcare to preventative healthcare. And then my like longer term wish is that it's not even preventative, but it's more just care and tending. And I would love to see that. And I feel like this is such a circle back because I feel like in our lineage of Chinese medicine and in medicine in many, many cultures, there's a tending that we've lost as we've developed. And your invocation, brings us back to that. And that is really my wish, is that we find our way. And some of us are. I think some of us are really going back there. But I want to see the whole. I want to see the collective coming to that place of tending once again, certainly rather than reactive.
Thank you for sharing that. And we're all just going to hold that. See that in our own lives too. Thank you. I don't even know how to end this. I don't want to I can feel it. I don't want to hang up with you, but this is the beginning. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient with all the technology glitches we had, and we will have you back for sure. We have to. And for everyone who is curious, please reach out and find Dr. Krystal on Instagram or through her website. If you are looking for a practitioner in your area and you're having troubles, you can reach out to Yinspired as well, and we will help you find someone. So thank you all. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Your support helps create positive ripples all throughout our communities. And if you want to be part of this conversation, if you have questions for our guest or you want to explore more, leave a comment, have feedback, please do so at substack.com and look for us at Yinspired, Yinspired. It's free to subscribe. You'll receive every new episode, plus access to transcripts, show notes, resources, and the opportunity to join the discussion. You can leave your comments, and I will actually comment on them, and so will others. So from my heart to yours, everyone, create a day you love. This podcast is for entertainment, education, and inspirational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast is diagnostic or direct medical advice and does not establish a practitioner-patient relationship. Seek care from a highly trained medical provider for your healthcare concerns.